All right, welcome everybody to week 14, day 2 again, because OBS ate my last video. So what we have here is a basic water that's just created with a plane, and we made like a material for it with some panner nodes on it. We can't swim into it. It looks not bad, but there's a built-in water system in Unreal Engine that makes it a lot better. And so in order to use this, you have to go to Edit, Plugins, search for Wata, and turn on Wata and Wata Experts. And if they were not on before, you'll have to reboot. And then once you reboot, you have the ability to add Wata to your world if your landscape has edit layers enabled. So this is key. Please pay attention. If you skip this part, nothing will work and you'll be mystified as to why it doesn't work. So if you click on your landscape and you just search for it, if you don't see it, there is a field called Enable Edit Layers. That needs to be on. I'm going to point my mouse on this and just leave it there for a few seconds. That needs to be checked on. If that is not checked on, none of this will work and you're going to be very confused. Like, I'm doing this stuff and just nothing's happening. And that's the problem with Unreal Engine, is that, a lot of times you do things and there's like one checkbox somewhere hidden down in the details panel that if you don't have it checked, just nothing happens. So that right there, I'm just gonna leave it there for a second, make sure that's checked. Otherwise, you're gonna be very confused and upset and angry. So now that we have that checked, we can drag out some Wata. And the reason why I'm saying Wata is because that's how it's said in like Metalocalypse. So go into the Wata. All right, so we can just drag out a lake and boom, we got a lake. Look at that. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. And you can like drag the lake around. Neat. Like that's like really cool. And the defaults for the water system in Unreal Engine are kind of like, okay, they're not great. You can see here that the thing is like carving the landscape away, and that's why Enable Edit Layers needs to be on. You can see that the lake is actually cutting into the landscape as it is and creating a 45-degree sort of lip around it like that as it kind of carves into it. And if you want, you can pull it up a little bit. And if you don't have it just right, then you'll get something like this, which also looks kind of terrible. And so, yeah, all of those settings you can play with. That looks a little bit better if you get at least at the ground level. But you can see here, like I just really don't like it. So I'm actually going to just pull it over here and maybe down a little bit. Yeah, see what I mean? Like, no matter how you cut it, like there's something like this. It just kind of doesn't look good. I'll just put it back the way it was before over here. That's good enough, I guess. It'll also cut into your mountains and things like that. Like we got a mountain over there, and you can see it just, just obliterates the mountain, right? So you gotta keep your water away from big land masses like that. You can also edit those settings, and that's actually something that you kind of have to do every time you work with water. It's really easy to drop it in. You just click on the water body lake, you just drag it onto the map, and boom, you have a lake. And then you spend the next hour like going like, all right, what is the fall off? We went with fall off mode, and the fall off angle to be 20 degrees, and the fall off width to be 200, and yeah, no, that doesn't look good. All right, let's put it up at 2000. Okay, that's all right. Looks better than what we had before, and you just sit there and you just go through the details panel while you have the lake selected. And you go in there and just start clicking on things and just changing things, and until you get the thing looking reasonable, And what's cool about it though is that it does a lot for you, like just for free, right? Like with that other static lake that we had over there, it's just a plane, and if you want to fall through it, then you can set it as non-collidable. But look at this, like the water is actually coming up out of the surface. It doesn't look good, like physically, you know what I mean? Like from a physics perspective, this is actually unnatural, right? A little pond like this would not have these waves kind of like rising up like that. This would look better if it was more as like part of a lagoon or like a harbor or something like that, where like, you know, you got some kind of ocean water coming in. This is a little bit too dramatic for a little pond like this, but check this out. If you walk into it, you can walk into it, and then there's like underwater fog. There's a post-process volume that does that for you. When you come up, you can actually see the water's like moving and stuff like that. There's like the reflection and refractions all taken care of for you. It's really cool. Just my only, again, complaint with it is that the defaults kind of, I don't know if they're bad defaults, because I don't want to call them bad defaults, because they probably work well for some people, you know, but like you can see like when it creates those like weird ledges and things like that, and I'm going to drop an ocean in a little bit, it makes these weird, like just very unnatural looking land masses and things like that. But you can see by just kind of playing with the settings, this looks a lot better now. There's a little bit of a weird depression here caused by it, but I'm kind of happy with this. This looks fine now, except for the waves. So let's take a look at the waves, effects, blurring, curl noise. Let's see here, wave. So there's two different waves that come with the water system: the water waves, that's the reference, and Gerstner waves. And all of these things, you can sit there and play with these things. Click on waves, click on that, click on default, wavelength, amplitude, direction, steepness. And just to give you an example, like if I were to turn the number of waves up to 100, then that's kind of what it looks like. But you can see the mesh itself is actually splitting open when you do that, so it's not really good. Turn the waves down to like 1, then you have a very kind of still pond or something like that. 2 waves. And that's better, you know, for like a little pond like this. It's better. The wavelengths, if you want to have like a really long wavelength wave, that will give you a very smooth, you know, there's a little bit of gentle undulation on the surface that looks pretty good. The amplitude, though, we need, like, what if we set this up to 1,000? This would be cool if you're like in some sort of like Hawaii, like North Shore, big, you know, surf competition kind of thing. On a lake like this, nah. You know, you want your waves small and refined. You know, you want these things like really just kind of gentle, little ripples. You know, because the breeze is going to blow across it and create these little ripples and things like this. And this is actually looking about what I would expect from a lake. You know what I mean? It's maybe a little bit too noisy. Like there's maybe a little bit too much going on there. But if there's a little bit of breeze going on, you know, this would actually look fine. There's a little bit of a wave kind of coming up and down, which again doesn't exactly look accurate. You see this? It's doing this thing here, but again, it's just a matter of just playing with these things and really just setting the amplitude and wavelength and free, you know, like all these kinds of things. You just kind of sit there and play with it, and this is not bad. It's really not bad. Dominant wind angle. Let's see. Nope, it's too fast. There. Good. All right. That's a lake. All right. So we got a lake there. Cool. And you can just, like I said, you just drag out a lake. You're like, boom, like let's just add a lake. You just drag it out and you get a lake. And the water system will actually blend together different things in the water plugin. So here you can see it's trying to do its best to glue together 2 different lakes. This boundary doesn't look good because the lakes are on different elevations. So if I were to drag this lake down, now you'll see that this lake over here is still. And this lake over here has those high frequency waves. There's some issues here as well. But the water system will actually kind of try to do its best, and then it just looks bad sometimes. You really have to play with these things. But it will try. If you have multiple water systems on the same level, very commonly you will have a river running down into a lake. And let's show you what that looks like. And we got a thing up here. Let's drag it up here. Yep, that just cut into it, didn't it? All right, these control points can all be moved, so I'm going to move that control point. Actually, I'm just moving the whole river, aren't I? Yeah, look at that. Makes a little waterfall for us. Okay, cool. It looks terrible, but I mean, kind of cool. Yeah, it's terrible that when leaving that way. So we'll just pull this down to here. And that's a little bit too low, so I'll just pull it up. And that's okay for now. Let's drop it like 1. The trouble is the water channel here is like it's still creating that lip there. So let's just pull it out here. There. Okay. And so you can see that the river is blending in with the lake, right? So there's no obvious seam. And if I mess with the... Oh, this is actually the beginning of the river. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I was actually expecting the thing to flow into it. Let's see here. Somewhere in here, there's the direction of the water. And we can... somewhere in there, you can change the direction the water's flowing. But I am actually going to just do it the other way. So I'm going to move it over here. And what you can do is you can actually select these spline points. These spline points are controllable, and that will control the direction the river flows. And so you can just sit there and you can alt-click and make another spline point if you want, and make whatever kind of horseshoe bend kind of thing you want. This is going to be the origin of the river, though, so let's kind of get this up on the mountainside and pull it over here. And coming out of the thing over here. And then our other control points, just delete that one. We don't need it. We're going to have it coming into the lake. You can see the water is flowing downhill right now, right? So you, thank you. We'll have it come over that way. And then the last control point, we're going to have you fly into the lake over here. So I'm just kind of reordering the control points over here. And we'll have it kind of join in with the lake over here. And again, you'll get these weird things based on the edge settings. These are all things you just play with. You know, this all looks terrible, right? Like I said, the defaults on this, like, I don't know why it wants to create like green jello. It's just kind of bubbling up out of the ground and then have ground. You know, like this is, you know, this probably was a good setting for somebody, but like I said, the defaults just don't look good by default. So you just, you know, at least for me, usually, so you just kind of have to like click on things and play with them. So this will move up a little bit and move it to the right a little bit. Make kind of a, I don't know, I could probably put some rocks here to hide the origin, but okay, here we go. So you got some water flowing downstream, and it's going to curve this way, and it's going to curve this way, and there's a little boundary, but that's not, I think, visible in the game world. And it's not too bad, actually. I'm just going to pull this end here closer a little bit, and then you'll see that the water kind of flows down the river. And then when it hits the lake, you can see it just kind of blends in. And it actually looks pretty good. Like I said, the river to lake is probably the most common connection I make using this. And it actually looks pretty good. Connections between two lakes and oceans, you kind of have to play with a little bit more. I've done it before. It gets kind of annoying. Because the ocean's trying to do these waves and your lake's trying to be all calm. And the water system's like, I don't know what to do, man. You tell me. So this is not too bad. That's pretty unnatural looking there. And then this is weird. It's vanishing and then appearing. Okay, so what we can do is click on that control point. And like I said, if you want to add more control points, you can just alt drag, and that will add another point to that. And then you can have more detail, and this will come up a little bit and a little bit like that. And you can click on these things here, and that can adjust like the curve of the river. things like that. You can pull it up, pull it down, things like that. And you can just sort of adjust those things to your heart's content. They're very tweakable. This looks a little weird right now because that is a little bit too high. And it's kind of like coming up, actually. There. All right. So still not quite natural. There's this weird kind of upswing here. Let's see. Tick. Now that's looking all right. Like you'd want probably to have something here because water would normally like flow over the flow out of the channel there. You can see there's a little bit of a lip added by the river, but that's just a first pass for a lecture. Like I'm okay with that. So there you go. So we got a river, and I'd again make a mouth of a cave or rocks or something like that for the spring to come out of, and then the river flows down into here and it hits the lake, and you can see it actually does a really good job sort of having the fast-ish moving water of the river hit the lake, and then it just kind of comes to a stop, and you have a nice peaceful lake here. And I probably need that just a little tick lower here. No, too low. Not bad. Not bad. Okay, happy with that. Next up is the ocean. So drag out the ocean, boom, like that. You're on an ocean. You're on an island, right? Simple as that. And not a very large island either. So if you were expecting to have like a lot of land, you don't anymore. So again, this is a place where you will need to adjust the control points. So if I zoom out, you can see that the ocean has given us 4 control points, and I'm just going to use the intersection between the green and the red. Red is the x-axis, y is the y-axis, green is the y-axis, blue is the z-axis. If I just drag these out, then I will get more of my original land back. However, if I drag it off the edge of the landscape, then it turns gray and doesn't work. So you have to like pull it in enough that you're still on dry land, so to speak. And you can also adjust the these control points here. And that can allow you to adjust the shape and make all sorts of like cool looking shapes and things like that. As well as, like I said before, you can alt drag and add a new control point. And these splines, or what they're called, you can go through the spline points by clicking on the little thing here. And I'm just going to pull these spline points out far enough. You can see that like my old lakes here are now completely engulfed in, or not completely engulfed, but like mostly engulfed by the free land generated by the ocean. So the ocean very helpfully made a beach for us that then ate into our existing static non-water plugin lakes. And so I'm just going to pull this out, and this is what I'm talking about. You see this? Like the defaults are just like, yeah, we'll just make a little lip of land for you, instead of, I don't know. Again, I really can't complain because these defaults probably made sense to somebody. If I click on the ocean and maybe drop it a little bit, maybe that'll help. No, you see it's now cut. It creates this weird ring effect, right? So this is the ocean like cutting into the landscape. So undo that. It's still cutting in. Just pull these control points out here, click on that. And so all these spline points here just be dragged out. And if you move it out too far, once they go off the edge of the landmass, then the thing will turn gray like that. And when you do that, the water just won't appear, right? So that's a sign that you've gone too far. You have dug too deep. So you got to get that back on dry land. And even though this is on dry land, you see how the spline curve is hitting the void, essentially. So you could fix that by like hitting the control point here. Hitting the control point here, and like rotating it in a little bit so that it isn't off the void. No, still on the void there. So we'll just pull you in slightly. There we go. And once you get ocean in all directions, you're good to go. And this blank point here. Go ahead and click on you. No. On you. Let's drag that out until we hit the void and then pull it back in a little bit. Okay. And last one over here. Again, I'm clicking on the intersection, like that corner there, between the green and the red. Pull that out. It's already near the void. There we go. And this one is off a little bit, so maybe I'll click on the control point. Make kind of an interesting shape to the island. All right, so this creates like a neat little... Oh, it's getting cut right there. Okay, and so you can use these things to create these little curves and things like that that look a little more natural than just a oval, you know. And what is that? All right. So yeah, so now we have this ocean that is surrounding our landmass, and unfortunately, the ocean creates these giant beach areas like this. So. So this is again a place where you kind of come in here and you start looking at, I think this, and you kind of like, you're gonna do a cruise, an island tour, and you like kind of like fly around. Like that doesn't look too good. Nope, it looks worse. You know what I mean? So you just sit there and you just start playing with the things, and you're like, I don't know. So this is like an elevated. Nope, that's off the edge of the void, but. It's not terrible. And you just do like a little island tour like this. You just keep floating around the island, kind of trying to see if it's, because it creates these really unnatural like cuts into the hills and things like that you have next to the edge. And so like I just sit there and I'll play with those things like, you know, all day long. And did I have one more void? No? Are we good here? I'll do one more pass around here. Looks pretty good. The water actually above the ground level. And then we can come down into the water, and we can switch this to Gerstner waves and create bigger waves if we wanted. So like the ocean could be surrounded by fierce waves. That does not look very good. Looks like Jello is getting angry at me. Like your graphic equalizer's mad at you now. Looking better. things are still a little bit too pointy. Like that doesn't, like you can also see the mesh tearing open in that. So you can create whatever kind of waves you want just by clicking on those things and just playing with them. Let's see what it looks like inside of the game. So here we go. Goal again. Goal. I'm getting shot. There you go. So there is our static water down there. And there's no sprint system on this one. Go up to here. And we can see the ocean in the distance, and it looks pretty good. Yeah, this is a great way of not having to put in too much detail into your levels. You know, you just have ocean, and then people know not to walk in it. Why? Because there's nothing there. A little bit of atmospheric haze. There's no islands off in the distance. There's nothing that's going to encourage people to just go over there and go into the water, right? So, water does not look quite realistic. It's just like the ocean just goes right up to the shore here. And we're now falling to our doom. So, yeah, again, just play with that. But that's water. So, water body exclusion volumes can be used to allow players to not enter surface swing when touching water volume. You make islands on the ocean. I don't know. I came over there. So yeah, you can create islands inside of. Let's make a small island here. Undo. This guy. It's really small. Nope. Missed the. All right, I'll try you then. Tiny little island here. Happy little island with happy little trees. It's so goofy looking. Okay. So you can see, you can make a water and then have an island in the middle of it like that. And again, it's using the spline system and whatnot, so you can add more. Come here. Make all sorts of weird and goofy shapes. There we go. And then it'll just interact with the, the water systems, however you want. So that's basically it. It's not anything too complicated. I mean, it's complicated for the Epic people, I'm sure, to have written, but they've made it pretty easy for you to, make some really nice looking water really simply. There's also a buoyancy system that you can look into that'll allow you to have boats and things like that interact with the waves and have them float and stuff like that. It's really cool. But that's the basics. So river, lake, ocean. It's mostly what I use. And like I said, it'll blend together. The boundaries. Let me just show you what happens if the ocean touches a lake. Then. So let's pull this over for a second. So you can see that the lake and like it just. Do you see that? Like it just doesn't like. It tries. Yeah, it tries. But in general, it's just not a good idea to try to get the ocean. I have, and I've made it work, but it's just kind of annoying. Sit there and play with all the settings and getting the things to blend together properly is just kind of more effort than it's worth. Okay, so that is Unreal Engine's water system. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.